bill so that you can find out what is in it.
How can the Republican majority in this Congress explain to their constituents that trillions of dollars of new debt is good for our economy?
I first learned about the tactics and the phrase Operation Fast and Furious at the beginning of this year.
Hello once again, everybody. This is Jeff Wagner on the Conservative Voice, Conservative Radio Network. Logic over emotion, fact over fiction, the home of independent conservative thought. We are going to get right into it here. We're almost overwhelmed on a daily, weekly basis with what's going on in the country. But there's, of course, a lot to talk about that's more or less on the negative side, I guess definitely on the negative side when you look at what's happened surrounding Obamacare and the CR and the upcoming debt ceiling increase, which will be another debacle to be guaranteed. So what I thought I'd do today is, before we get into all that stuff that you hear here and other places, I thought that we would take a little bit more of a positive spin and look at something and talk about something that that'll make you feel good. And that is, recently I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Ron Leonard, and I did a phone interview and I mixed that down. So we're going to start with that. The interview will explain itself, but it's an excellent cause, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. So we're going to start with that interview with Ron Leonard.
I'd like to welcome today Ron Leonard. Ron is the person who is operating a program called K9 for Christ. It's an organization that, Ron, I'm going to let you fill our listeners in and talk a little bit about what you do, what your mission is, and a little bit about your background, if you wouldn't mind kicking it off that way.
Sure. Well, my wife and I live in Nashville, Tennessee. We minister at the Fort Campbell with the 101st Airborne, and we've been ministering to our military for about 6 years now. I retired in 2004 after serving honorably in all the Desert Storms out there, and I got out in 2004. And in 2007, we started ministering to our military at the Fort Campbell base, working with our wounded warriors, those that suffer with PTSD. And as your listening audience is well aware of, there will be a lot of people coming back with PTSD, about 30% of them after we wind down this war in Afghanistan. And so with that, we started just ministering to them, showing them biblical solutions of how they could work with it. And then we started working about 2 months ago with our dog named Molly, and she is a certified therapy dog, and we are using her to work with vets, to work with people that are affected with PTSD, and it even goes beyond our military. So that's kind of what we're doing, and we have teamed up and partnered with K9s for Christ out of Tampa, Florida, and we have started working with them as far as helping people understand who we are, and so that's kind of how we got started.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for your service.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and it sounds like an excellent mission that you're on.
Sure.
I'd like you to talk about, if you wouldn't mind, just some of the experiences, some of the results that you have, the feedback that you get, maybe some situations, so people better understand what our soldiers are dealing with when they come home.
Sure.
And maybe
when they come home, a lot of them, about 30%, like I said, will be dealing with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And post-traumatic stress disorder has been around forever. It was prevalent during the Vietnam War, but it never really got diagnosed until about the mid-'80s, and that's when the Army started really looking at it. And it wasn't until a few years ago that the Army started looking at it more seriously, because the suicide rate was going up so high. We had in 2010, we had 35 suicides in 1 year alone at Fort Campbell, so which is the home of the 101st Airborne. And so that is what caused it. And you have different types of PTSDs. You got from 1, which is light, to 4, which is possibly homicidal or suicidal. And so we have guys that are coming back home that are dealing with this. They don't know what to do. They feel isolated. They feel like their family don't love them anymore. They feel like their kids have ostracized them, or they just feel alone. They'll get into a dark room and won't even open the lights, and sounds will scare them. Sometimes they'll be in a restaurant and something will pop and they'll hit the ground simply because they're so used to that over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And once they get back, we try to deal with this, and what we're dealing with is we're dealing with one of God's four-legged creatures, which is a therapy dog, has an unconditional love, and that dog has calmed them down so much that we have seen several come off their meds simply because of that one thing of the dog. They had that dog around all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. So after your sessions are done, what normally do you see as far as, I don't know if I'd call it a retention, but let's say a continued success rate?
Continue to say we're seeing with guys that literally take it seriously as far as having a service dog is concerned and having a therapy dog, and there are several groups out there, not just Canines for Christ, but we have also worked with just different ones of Companions for Heroes, and what they do is they actually give the vets the free dog, and they actually train the dog for them to be a service dog or a therapy dog or just a companion, and we have seen a 90% effective rate on this thing. So
wow.
It's just gone off the record. Yeah, it's really good. The Army's starting to use it. The police departments are starting to use therapy and service dogs now because they cannot use their dogs. Their dogs are attack dogs. So, they have to use a dog that's going to be calm in every situation. And so they're going to the civilian community and saying, we need this. And it's becoming very popular. The last 6 years, it's probably become the most popular thing out there is using therapy dogs and service dogs.
So you mentioned the police departments are starting to use different dogs because of the way theirs are trained.
Yeah.
Are the dogs that these folks using, are they former service dogs, or are they in the same situation?
No, they have been trained, and they actually train them like a police dog, but they don't take them to the next step of, bomb sniffing and different things like that. What they do is they train them for basic commands: heel, sit. You've had pets before probably, and you've trained
Sure.
it to heel, to sit, to stay there. And so it's just simple commands. We rely heavily on Petco a lot. Petco is a great trainer, Petco and PetSmart, and what they do is they know how to train animals. They've got professional trainers, so we work with them a lot because what happens is that especially the companions for our heroes, actually what they do is they allow the vet to go out and adopt his own dog if he's not dealing with a service dog, and then they reimburse him and they pay for his insurance for a year, and then they give him a $100 gift certificate to Petco to be able to start up with his dog. So that's kind of neat, and everything.
That's awesome. So yeah. So it's really more about training. Maybe it's more what people would refer to as obedience type of training, but building. It is.
Yeah.
A relationship
and we have each vet go and fill out an application, and what they do is they find out this is our specific needs, and then it goes to the headquarters. And this one's in Virginia. It goes to the headquarters. And the reason why I work with two organizations, brothers, I work with one on the faith-based side, but I also work with others that are on the secular but have a correct worldview. And the reason why I do that is so people just don't feel uncomfortable where you're trying to push something on me. I mean, I know that Christ is the answer. You know that Christ is the answer, but sometimes we have to let people take that journey on their own, And so I try to use a secular organization with a faith base so we can balance the two out.
Yes, I do know that, and I guess looking at today's headlines, and I don't want to get overly political on you, but I'd
Sure.
like to know how some of these vets feel coming back. It seems to me like Afghanistan has been somewhat forgotten. Is that contributing to the problem?
I think it is. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's not as bad as it was in Vietnam. I mean, the Vietnam vets, every time I speak to a public gathering, and I know there's a lot of vets involved, I specifically point out the Vietnam veterans because a lot of them have never heard thank you from a grateful country. And so I make sure we do that. Afghanistan and Iraq and all the other desert storms out there are not that bad because people are coming back, but it is out of sight, out of mind. But they're still being thanked from a grateful country of what they did. But people are just war weary. We want all these wars over. I mean, you're trying to, like I said, solve a 6,000-year problem that should not going to get solved in 10 years, and everything.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening out there. And we're just trying to help these vets as they come home, because I tell people, you may not agree with the war. That's your constitutional right. But don't blame the vets or the military for the war. It's not their fault. They're out there serving on their own free will, So
right.
I tell people, always thank God for the vets, because they're out there. So I think that, with the war coming to an end, that we're going to find more problems coming back. But I think that we've got a handle on it now to where it's going to be handled a lot differently than it was back then. And because there's a lot of organizations, not just ours and not just yours. You're doing a great job out there with your radio program. And I tell people, at the end of the day, we're on the same team, okay? So, I said we need to act like it.
Yes, we do. And, unfortunately, I guess my comment would be that, unfortunately, regardless of how war-weary the nation is, there's got to be two parties that want to end the war, and I don't think we have the other party that's
I don't think that we have it either, and I think that we're even dealing with the area of right now, just the government shutdown. We're just dealing with things that are just that if you ran your business like they did, then we would have problems, and everything like that. Yes. So, we just got to understand that, that it's just going to take common sense to bring things back to where it needs to be. One side has to give, another side has to give, and that's what the two-party system is all about, and stuff, is to be able to give and take, And the thing about it, we may disagree ideologically, and that's fine, but, we can come to the middle on something, everything.
Well, I think it'd be refreshing to see people on both sides of the aisle actually fulfill their oath like the folks in the military do.
Yeah, it really should, and everything. And again, I just think it's going to just have to take an act of God, on this, and just to understand that I don't. A lot of people want to throw things away. I'm not throwing it away yet. I still think there's hope for this country, or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, So I still think there's hope. It's not over till it's over, and we need to understand that, and we need to keep fighting the good fight, So
I hear you, and I agree with you, and I know you were talking a little bit ago, and I want to give you an opportunity to speak to this as well, and that is that you work with K9 for Christ, but you also have your ministry, which is In Christ Alone.
Yeah, which is actually, my wife and I are official missionaries with the North American Mission Board, and which is the Southern Baptist entity, and we've been on board with them for about 1.5 years now. And we funnel everything through there, but they are all about partnering with other people. So we're partnering with K9 for Christ and kind of moving in basically that direction. But In Christ Alone is my email to where people can get a hold of me and everything, but North American Mission Board is where that we absolutely, as far as our funds go through, because that's 501c3. So,
gotcha.
And so that's what we do, but we use a couple organizations that have got a correct worldview, Companions for Heroes, and also Canines for Christ. And so we use both of them as a partnership, and they're okay with that. They have no problem at all. Anytime you can get your name out there, they're glad. So, they're, excited about us partnering with them on this and everything like that.
Gotcha. So I misunderstood that based on our correspondence.
That's okay.
My apologies for that. So let me ask you a question. I know we're talking primarily about PTSD, but I've seen on some sites and stuff, and I don't know if it was K9 for Christ. I think it was.
Sure.
But working with the elderly and what other groups have you seen success with?
The elderly. Molly and I usually each morning go to an elderly rehabilitation center, and we're able to talk to people there. And Molly's able to go around and say hi to everybody. And then it's been interesting. Different home improvement stores have opened up for Molly to come in and to say hi to people. And you meet vets everywhere, and so we have the opportunity to be able to do that. And we're still looking into other places we need to go. The National International Airport is thinking about wanting to use Molly. So it's just things that we have to just prioritize. But our main thing is reaching our vets. That's our main thing, because we have 23 vets that commit suicide every single day in the United States. And so, 23 vets and one active duty commits suicide every single day. Those are astounding numbers. And so we try to really reach those before they become unreachable. The founder of Companions for our Heroes is a guy that came out of the Iraq War. and he actually got so depressed that he was picking up a gun, and he had the gun actually in his mouth. He was going to pull the trigger, and all of a sudden he felt a lick on his ear, and it was his dog.
Wow.
And he looked at that dog, and he saved his life, and now he's married and got a child. So, God can use anything God wants to do, and everything.
Yeah.
And he said, that dog looked at me and said, I need you. He said, if you'll be there for me, I promise you I'll be there for you, And it's just kind of neat. He's a little puppy now. The dog's almost 4 or 5 years old now. So it's just, but that little thing happened. So God can do anything through animals, and stuff. And, it's really interesting. The police here in Nashville tell me their MO, if they go to a house and there is a abuse of an animal, they always look to see if there's an abuse of a child. Because they say if you'll do that to an animal, you will do that to another human being too,
Right.
So it is interesting. And the book of Proverbs says that the way you treat your animal is your character. So God takes it very seriously on this stuff. Everything. He really does.
Well, I hate to be so cliche, but he works in mysterious ways, as they say.
Oh, he does. He does. Yeah. He just works in ways that we don't know. I mean, we're not God. So
right.
it just, it's just. I love in the movie Rudy. It says there is a God and I'm not him. So it's really true. And I think that as Christians or as good people in this country, that we just need to understand we need to keep our eye on the ball. And to realize, let the government, fight whatever they need to fight out. But as long as I got freedom to go around and do this with what I'm doing with Molly and different things like that, then I've got a mission in life. I got a reason to wake up in the morning,
Right.
And, you just sometimes go for something that's a rabbit trail, and God has to pull you back on that trail. So I don't even want you out there, So.
Amen. So, what if people want to contact you for talk about
sure, that'd be great.
Services or next steps?
They can go to what they could do is go to www, and this is all in letters. It would be K9s. That would be K, the letter 9, S, for Christ.org. That's www.k9sforchrist.org. Or they can go to www.companionsforheroes.org. That's companionsforheroes.org. And I know you can put those two on your website, too, and everything like that. So
I will definitely do that.
They can go for there, or they can email me personally, and I can get them. We have people in all 50 states that, and even some in Canada that I can hook them up with a forever friend. And so they can email me at inchristalone2004@yahoo.com. That's inchristalone2004@yahoo.com. And I'll be able to answer their question directly and get them in the right direction. And I do try to answer my emails within about 12 hours. So.
Okay, awesome. So I know that also I saw some just before the last question, what states are currently the most active for you, or is it nationwide?
It's actually nationwide, but I would say that Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, those states are pretty active. Tennessee's pretty active because it's so close to Fort Campbell. So we see that, but we see it all over because there are vets all over the place that are stationed or that are out and need a companion and everything like that. And like I said, there are 5 million animals get euthanized every single year. And I understand that happens. That's just the way it is, because they got so many of them. But what they're trying to do is save some of these animals. Some of these animals would make great pets, and everything. And so, but the animal shelters get so overwhelmed, they don't have a choice, and everything. And so, but it's these dogs are really great dogs, and if they get a service dog, they get the vest with them and everything like that, so they can go anywhere. As you know, because of the Disabilities Act, you cannot kick a service dog out of nowhere. So that's just the way it is, and people need to honor that rule, and I think it's a great law, and everything. And so, and stuff. I had a picture of a service dog that was in an Applebee's, and he just under the table just sat there till his owner was through eating, and everything. He was just very trained, and it was just kind of neat, He didn't bother anybody, So anyway, but yeah. Yeah, it was, and I just appreciate all that you're doing with the is it the Conservative Radio Network? Is that right?
It is. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the Conservative Radio Network. Appreciate you taking the stand that you're taking for not only for the Lord but just for the country, because we still got people in this country that love it, and I go back to the World War II veterans and what's happened without going into it. That is the generation we need to honor the most right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and this week especially.
Yeah, it is. That's right and stuff, because they went through things so that you and I could be free. Back then, they fought for something, and you probably have friends or grandparents or everything else that served in those wars and everything, and so it's great. But yeah, again, they can email me at inchristalone2004 @yahoo.com, and I'll be glad to get them the information they need.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ron, for your time. And again, thanks for your service, and God bless you for what you're doing, and keep it light.
I will and stuff. Thanks a lot, my brother. Appreciate it, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Again, during all this upheaval politically that's going on across the country and the division between groups, it's refreshing to find somebody like Ron Leonard. And Ron, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and obviously you gave me a lot of new information I wasn't really aware of. I have checked out the websites, and I will get those up on my website, which is conservativeradionetwork.org. I'll get that up here at the end of the day today or tomorrow morning, and have that available for everybody. But make sure you thank a vet if you're out there and you see them traveling in the airports or wherever it is, gas station, whatever. Thank any active duty member. Thank any vet people wearing the hats, I know for certain that, a lot of people don't do that. They're too busy. I travel quite a bit. They think they're too busy. But please do take the time. Also, check out the websites that Ron mentioned. I'll have those posted, as I said. And very worthwhile cause if your congregation has an active youth group, perhaps they could do some work, get some funds to donate to these organizations as well, so they can continue their work. So I will be right back after this. In this time of political power grabs, endless bureaucracy, the creation of czars, the trampling of your constitutional rights, turn to the Ronald Boyd Show for clear, intelligent, and concise conservative opinion. Only on Spreaker.com.
It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact. The TSA is out on the streets. The FBI is spying on you. And you are in the crosshairs of the New World Order. Come listen to The Views Expressed with your host, Reverend Wayne S. Pierce. Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Right here on Spreaker.com.
Jeff Wagner back with you on the Conservative Voice, the Conservative Radio Network. We just got done playing an interview with Ron Leonard about some of the organizations he's working with some doing some therapy dog work with people with PTSD, some returning soldiers. If you didn't get that, if you're just joining us, coming in late, go ahead and slide the timer back on your computer and take a listen to it. Or come back and listen to the beginning after we're done. You can do that on Spreaker.com. You can also check us out on Facebook at The Conservative Voice. If you have any comments, suggestions, if you want to have any topics, want to be on the show perhaps, just email us at Conservative Radio Network, or TheCRN at hotmail.com, pardon me, and we'll take a look at that. So this interview made me think and go back to the situation as it is in America, and how a lot of the folks are talking about end of times prophecy and those sorts of things, and whether you believe in that or not. As far as the end of times, I guess who really knows. But what you can't deny is that we seem to be upside down in our philosophy. I think, I've talked about that before. But we seem to be everything that was once held as something that is to be respected seems now to be mocked, if you will. And I think that it goes back to turning everything upside down on its head, making us feel like we're dependent more on government, and our rights come from government and not from God, and having God be, especially Christianity, be mocked. I know, the president, if you want to call him that, will, cancel a prayer breakfast when he first got into office, but, make it a point to put the Muslim faith on a pedestal, and we've seen several examples of that. But if you're Christian, if you you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in Second Amendment rights in particular, you are mocked. If you even go as far as being a Tea Party member, you're called a terrorist, and the rhetoric that's coming out of our so-called leadership in Congress is disgusting. And if you had kids that behaved the way they did on both sides of the aisle, well, back in the day, you would maybe send them to their room without eating, or maybe they'd get a little swat in the rear end. But God forbid you do that these days. And the whole philosophy in the country is really discouraging, and this whole mentality of turning things upside down, I think, is also evident. And maybe, just maybe, and this is just a theory on my part, this has been able to be accomplished, and this is deliberate, absolutely deliberate. Back about 1911, and we'll get into this maybe a little later, but there was, the beginning of the Progressive Party in the sense of, or the progressive mentality in the sense of an organized effort to really change this country. I hate to use the words, but it's the truth. Fundamentally change this country, and now you know what that meant. But I think if you look at the existence of, and you put the two together, the existence of today's technology and the sense of narcissism that exists in the United States today, it makes it much easier to understand how we could get to where we're at. I think that if you look at, go back into right about the time cell phones came about, at least widely available. So back in the 80s, 80s and before, where you had more conversations, where you got to know people better, where you weren't constantly entertained. And think about this today, you had way back when, you had three channels. Today you can literally, not only do you have cable, but you have the internet. You have the ability to go to Netflix or those providers, and I mean, they're all great, but you can pick and choose what you want and be entertained at any time. And you're no longer having the conversations that you used to have, getting to know people, getting to know your neighbors. But the linkage here is getting to know current events, being involved in your school district, being involved in your kids' lives, and your kids aren't involved in their families' lives. And I think that technology has been bad for us in that sense, that because of it, we're wrapped up in our own little worlds, and it makes it easier for all of this stuff to happen and to go by. And I think that people are not as willing to spend their time to do something about it, because they're not getting as, I wouldn't say upset about it, but they're not as educated as to, first of all, what it should be, because the schools have been infiltrated as well by people with a mindset that want to turn our traditional values upside down. And there's some great examples of that just this week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think that if you think about that, maybe everybody's searching for an answer to come from Washington, but the answer has to start with everybody that's out there, and basically has to start with ourselves. So you have to look at the impact you can make locally, first with your family and your kids especially, what they're involved with, their mindset, school, church and community, and look at it as more of an approach of, if everybody's doing this, the ripple effect will be enormous, and we simply won't tolerate the types of things that are happening to us right now, and we won't be fooled by people who run for office and vote them in to begin with. So I think that that's important to really contemplate, think about, and have a good discussion with your family about, and see where you can get more involved. And also be honest with yourself. What do you need to be more educated about? Have you read the Constitution? Federalist Papers, Anti-Federalist Papers? Where are you at in that regard? And take the time to actually do it. Turn off the TV, highlight some stuff. Always do that. Go back and look at some things that particularly stand out, and have discussions with people boldly. Be right back after this short break. And we're back. I'd like to welcome Richard Lemire. I hope I said that right. He's a first-time listener. That was Son of Scary. George Lynch, one of my favorite guitar players. That's something that I do if you're not familiar, one of my hobbies. Before the break, we were talking about how everything is kind of getting turned upside down in the country, and things that were once thought to be, well, the bedrock of our country are now frowned upon, whether it's Christianity or strong belief in the Constitution, like some of the Tea Party members, all the Tea Party members being called terrorists and those sorts of things. And we used to be able to perhaps more easily vocalize what was wrong with the country, because I think people were more educated as far as our history and the Constitution and those sorts of things. But now we have a leader who makes it a little bit more difficult, a lot more difficult, because he has divided the country, and there's the strong ideological right and the strong ideological left. There's not so many moderates anymore, and I think, to be honest with you, and this is just my opinion, but I think that the whole concept of forcing being a moderate on people and candidates taking the moderate position has also contributed to the position we're in right now. I think it's fine to have your opinions and your own set of values, but when you're moderate and everything is a compromise, then you end up with this mishmash that we have today, and we lose some of those values, and because of those compromises, we're forced to look the other way, regardless of what side you're on. And the reason why we can't come to terms that make sense today is because it seems like there isn't a lot of common sense. Just as I said, if you caught this earlier, that we seem to be a society that we're not talking around the dinner table anymore. It's all kind of a narcissistic, everything's about me, and I want to be entertained 24/7. I think the same holds true for our politicians, and maybe it's never changed, but I think it has a little bit in the sense that there seems to be less of a regard for the constituency of the individual politician, and everything they do, even more than ever now, is something that's done more for themselves, at least for many of them. I do think there are some folks out there who really, at least currently, are there to do what they've campaigned on and said that they're there to do. But looking back and thinking about all the events that have happened recently, I'm not so sure that the representation is there for us to really effectively create the change, and therefore that's the reason for doing it at a local level, and for looking for leadership within yourself and looking for leadership within your community, and making a difference at that point. So recently I started a couple things. I now have a Roku channel. If you have a Roku box out there, you can go on. It's if you add a private channel, you can add the CRN is the code for that, and you can add that. And what it is some documentaries that I get, and I try to pull just from resources that you can all get to, but just pull things to have a collective point and hopefully have something of value and a shared value. So that is the CRN is a code for that, and that's a Roku channel. If you have your box, I try to add stuff to that on a regular basis. I'm going to be doing that again soon. These things that I do, whether it's this radio show or the Roku channel, or lastly the blog, which I'm just starting. Those things are all on the side, and I do work full time, and this is kind of my way of trying to make a little bit of a ripple and hopefully at least stir some thought in some folks. I certainly don't think I have all the answers. I know I don't, but hopefully it stirs some thought in people, and they can decide how they can maybe make a difference themselves. So anyway, I want to talk about the blog a little bit, and specifically the topic of the blog, and just kind of go through a little bit. The objective that I talked about a little bit before the break was the progressives' effort to really change this country. And there have been several mentions of the New World Order, whether it was George Bush Sr. or Barack Obama or before. I think there's different motivations for different people. I think that, for example, on the Reagan side, some people say that he mentioned it with the city on a hill. I think in that case, and maybe even in Bush's case, it comes from, I'd like to think it comes from more of a discussion of the outcome being other nations being more democratic. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know this, that when Barack Obama is emphasizing and backdooring treaties with the UN that have to do with our gun rights and other things, that he is not at all thinking in the same regard that those gentlemen were. I think that his idea of a new world order is minimizing or reducing the importance of the United States in the world stage, and he's done quite a good job of that. So, this blog topic, the New World Order, going where no man has gone before, it's well known that today's brand of far left liberal or socialist progressive share a common vision, and I would add in there that even some of the rhinos that are out there share their vision as well. That is that they view this world as having the potential to be something bigger and better than what other people with other views do. They proudly display their coexist bumper stickers and fight for causes of equality for everyone. Of course, that is everyone that shares their views. Others they attack relentlessly, and at the same time they claim to be the tolerant group of individuals, which we all know they're not. They cling to that belief, and they celebrate diversity. They think that we can reach a point where we all get along and we all have the same access to services, money, housing, and of course stuff. They refuse to be told otherwise. They're kind of like a wide-eyed youngster who won't accept that Superman cannot fly, and further that he doesn't exist. It's a narrative that pushes their agenda, an eventual goal of the New World Order. It's the utopia that they're in search of. They contradict themselves often and in the extreme. For example, during the Iraq War, they were the first to argue that we should not get involved in a battle between factions of religion that have been killing each other for centuries. Yet somehow they and their allies in the establishment Republican Party feel that we're late in our obligation to support the Libyan rebels and disregard the fact that there are terrorist elements within the rebel ranks. They disregard the fact that we're not quite sure who actually did those gas attacks. There's different information coming from all over. So what gets lost in the argument is that by their very desire to use the tools of warfare, they're admitting that the nature of man is such that the New World Order utopia can't exist. The dream is unchanged. From the hippies in the 1960s, singing "Give Peace a Chance" to the deliberate creation of a power vacuum on the global stage by a community organizer. If you haven't seen the video that is out there that Andrew Breitbart was going to put out, eventually at least part of it got put out before he died of a heart attack, supposedly. I recommend you go on that and see that. It shows Barack Obama speaking for a gentleman who's wouldn't call him that, a known radical socialist, speaking on his behalf at a march when he was in college. What's changed is the danger that we and future generations are in as a result of this ideology, and we're really at a turning point. And it can be a positive thing. It can be that we take this wake-up call and we do something with it, or it can be that we allow it to continue and we allow the other side to win. So, while we'd all like to live on a planet in which every living thing is loved, valued, and treated equally, the planet itself exposes reality. Nature itself shows us that there are winners and losers, that some by effort or by luck will have more and others will have less. Some by being able to reason, the use of tools and manipulate those can provide for their species, while others that can't use tools go extinct. Nature also provides examples of charity within and between species. And this is an important one. Charity is something that is chosen. It is a liberty to be charitable. It's not something that you can force through taxation. It's not something that your government should be responsible for, because governments will pick and choose losers. In the end, man is an animal that's imperfect in every way, and because of it, incapable of creating the utopia that these progressives look for. The New World Order utopia is fiction. It's fallacy. And some will peddle it as a means to an end. And their goal, don't kid yourselves, is to gain power, wealth, and status. They want to be the group of people who chooses for you because they know better. And this utopia, as I said in the onset, is a place that no man has gone before. And quite frankly, no man will ever go there. So that's the main content of my blog, and I'm going to have more of those to share with you. Hopefully we'll get some time, or some space, I should say, on some other websites, but I'm going to have those blogs available at mine, which again is conservativeradionetwork.org. And again, go check that Roku channel out if you get some time. I'd appreciate that as well. So, going back to Congress and the issues that we have with not having representation that seems to really care about doing what's right and sticking by the Constitution. We see today the issues. Well, within the last week, I've seen stories of a young lady being asked to remove her shirt in school because it was an NRA shirt and it had a silhouette of a man with a gun on it. I saw a story about a police officer who was dropping his kid off at school and was asked by the principal not to wear his uniform when he dropped his kid off at school. And that's a great example, because it used to be that law enforcement was respected and we used to teach our kids to respect law enforcement. Now you have a principal making that ridiculous request of this police officer. And I would say, he should have looked at the principal and said, I hope someday you get to call 911, and maybe what I'll do is, I'm going to have to stop at home and change because I don't want to offend you or the perpetrator, whoever's bashing your head in. But so rather disgusting examples, and they're happening on a daily basis. You look at the textbook fiasco that has kind of died down a little bit. It was in the news a few weeks ago about a textbook that was in, I believe it was in Florida. I have to go back and look at the story, but nonetheless, a textbook that highlighted Muhammad as the prophet of God, and talked about Islam, and there was 30-some pages dedicated to that, and only mentioned Jesus in passing. And that is what our kids are learning from. When the left rants and raves about the separation of church and state, they obviously confuse, not so obviously to them, but they confuse what the Constitution actually intended, that there would be no mandated religion or government-specific specified religion, that people had to practice the freedom to practice their own religion. It obviously had nothing to do with complete separation of church and state. And this, you look at our money, you look at our buildings, you look at our monuments, that's obvious. Yet, we have examples like the police officer, like the textbook, like the attack on Christianity, where our whole fabric of our being and of our society has been turned on its head, and every chance that he has, Barack Obama is power grabbing, and it's almost to the point where there's so much happening that you can't keep up with it. And I do believe that's by design. I do believe that the more that that occurs, and the more distractions that the Obama administration puts out, the more people will be overwhelmed and give up on actually making a difference. Which again is a good reason to go back to making a difference at the local level and focusing on having that ripple effect. One of the things that came up recently as well was Hillary Clinton supposedly going to have some TV time, a documentary done about her or her life story, and that got taken off the table. And I think that a lot of conservatives kind of celebrated about that and thought maybe they won a minor victory. But what I want to focus your attention on is, the Clintons don't exactly lose that often, and I really think that this was something that the Clintons had decided just wasn't the right time, and I think they had something to do with that, or they are happy that it happened, because she certainly wants to stay out of the light when there's still a lot of focus on Benghazi, and I think she wants to give that time to be forgotten or to be minimized by her friends in the lamestream media. And I think that there's a definite collusion on the part of the progressive Democrats that is a disgusting thing given what happened in Benghazi. And there was a recent clip that I came across that deals specifically with this whole issue, and it was from the Michael Savage show, I believe. I'm going to pull that up quick and let's take a listen to it. If you haven't heard it, some of these things I play, if you're listening to them, share them. And if you have a Facebook page, share them on Facebook. And so this one is out on our Facebook page as well. You can get it from there if you don't, or you can always get it from YouTube. But this again is talking about Benghazi and what really happened, what's going on around the whole Benghazi incident, and I'm just going to go into it right now here, so take a listen.
All right, it's the Savage Nation. We're all asking why Obama is silent on the interracial violence in America, why he's silent on the killing and the killing of Christians in Egypt. And an article came out the other day in WorldNet Daily saying Obama's brother linked to Muslim Brotherhood. Report says Malik directs radical Islamic movement's investments. And it's a report based upon reports by Walid Shobat, who says that he read a speech in Arabic on Egyptian television. Joining us now is Walid Shobat, former Muslim Brotherhood member, former PLO member, now a peace activist. He wrote a book called The Case for Islamophobia. Walid, welcome back to the Savage Nation. This is a very serious...
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Walid. In a news report on Egyptian television of a Gabali speech translated by researcher Walid Shobat, a former PLO organization operative, Gabali said she would like to inform the American people that their president's brother Obama is one of the architects of the major investments of the Muslim Brotherhood. Is that what she said?
Yes. This is the former chancellor of the Constitutional Court of Egypt. And she's also the current advisor to the Constitutional Court of Egypt. She's not a small cookie. Her name is Tahani al-Jabali. She stated that the reason the United States cannot fight the international organization of the Muslim Brotherhood is because the brother of U.S. President Barack Obama is the architect of the investments for the International Organization for the Muslim Brotherhood, which brings us back to the issue we discussed on your show before, Malik Obama. She's possibly talking about Malik Obama. She didn't give the name, but she said this is a nugget for the American people, what they do not know. She wants to open the books in the courts. She is, addressing the issues that Americans do not understand. She says the American government will not stop us. We need to open the files and begin court sessions. The Obama administration cannot stop us. they're holding ground. In fact, it's not just in a speech she gave. It's in several interviews.
But wait, she wants to open the files in Egypt to show how this government collaborated with the terrorists? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. She's saying that the government collaborated with the terrorists. You look at Benghazi, things that you've never heard in this country. It's all over, circulates the Middle East. In the Benghazi case, even there is a docket number 3790 against Morsi for involvement with terrorism in Libya and Egypt. In fact, even the Libyan government states that Mohammed Morsi was involved in Benghazi. When you look at what the Americans are charging regarding Benghazi, there's only one Libyan, Khattala, a small fry. They're not addressing any of the Egyptian operatives. It was the case in Nasser City, terror cell, that was busted in Egypt, in which a Libyan was killed. His name, by Reuters, was linked to the case in Benghazi. But
what, Waleed, I believe every word you say, by the way, but what you're saying tonight is more shocking than anything you've ever said before. You are saying that Obama's half-brother, Malik Obama, is what, a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, or what?
It's worse. Malik Obama, as we stated before, with clear evidence from photos, from events, from numerous articles from the Middle East, everything is disclosed. He works for the Sudanese government. He is an employee of the Sudanese government. He works right under Omar al-Bashir. Muhammad Sarwar is his main boss. He is the executive director of the Islamic Dawah Organization of Sudan. Sudan is a state. It is illegal what he is doing. He is a U.S. resident. He runs a compound of polygamy in Kogelo, Kenya. He runs a 501c3. Louis Lerner is involved in this whole affair. The IRS is involved in this whole affair. He was granted a 501c3 illegally. He was, retroactive when it was illegal. He was lying the whole time, raising funds from the United States.
Waleed, you detailed all of these allegations in a 22-page investigative report entitled New IRS Scandal, Islamic Extremism and Sex Slaves. Report reveals Obama's relatives run charities of deceit. What is your website so people can decide for themselves?
Shoebat.com, just as you spell the word shoe, S-H-O-E, and the word bat, B-A-T, like baseball bat, S-H-O-E-B-A-T.com.
Okay, so Malik Obama and Sarah Obama raised money in the United States as the heads of foundations claiming to be charities. The IRS granted one of them tax-deductible status, retroactively going back to 2008. And then you say there are two IRS-approved 501c3 organizations operating in the U.S. by Obama's half-brother and step-grandmother in Kenya. But what does that have to do with the president? Remember, Jimmy Carter had a crazy brother, but you couldn't blame Jimmy Carter, as bad a president as he was, of being his brother. So should we say there's a linkage between the brothers?
Well, first we have to prove the link between Obama and the IRS. However, the IRS is linked to Malik Obama and his operation. So there's no way to refute that involvement. How did the IRS scandal begin? It has to have been all these meetings with President Obama in which it was in closed doors to basically begin to attack the Tea Parties and all these other things. So that whole issue is involved. Hussein Obama, the president, is very close, tightly knit with the family. In fact, it's been revealed in Al Jazeera television in which his cousin, Musa Ismail Obama, clearly said the communication is from his uncle, Saeed Obama, and the family in Kogelo in Kenya. And then you have Saeed Obama and all this family are seen with the Wahhabists, are raising funds to the most virulent Wahhabi schools in Saudi Arabia, Al-Qura University. Hello, the Mama Sara Fund, his grandmother's fund, is going to recruit Wahhabi schools from Africa. Well, we know what madrasa is. This is madrasas. The number one terror madrasa in the world is Al-Qura University. It was founded by Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, the founder and the godfather of Wahhabism. We're talking about a serious issue here. We're talking about Sudan, and his brother Malik Obama is an employee of Sudan, executive director of the Islamic Dawah Organization. You have Omar al-Bashir wanted on 7 counts in the International Criminal Court, talking about Syria.
Okay, but I hear you, and I don't deny it, but let's start from the top. Is Obama his brother's keeper? Are there legitimate links between the president and his renegade brother? Is it fair to draw conclusions about Obama from what his brother does or doesn't do?
Well, absolutely yes, because the president is responsible for what happens in the IRS scandal. He's responsible, especially when he's always meeting with his brother in the White House. How did he get his residency? How is he getting the IRS status? How is he getting all these favors illegally? It had to have been President Obama. I mean, I can't even apply for those kind of things. You can't. How could Malik Obama? Well, it has to be the last name Obama. It has to be related to Obama. It has to be related to the president.
Waleed, look, you're a guy who's worked in such deep, dangerous situations, both as a terrorist and an anti-terrorist, that you know the inner workings of these things much better than I do. I'm simply kind of almost an ingenue when it comes to these things. I can only imagine what you've had to live through, but I do watch an awful lot of television. When I watch the TV show Homeland, have you ever seen that show about a former U.S. congressman who had been brainwashed and converted to Islam secretly and becomes a congressman, and he's really working for the other side? Are you implying that that's what we have here?
Well, we have to look at Obama's allegiances. We have to look at what's happening. Americans need to see what's happening. Libya is gone, amok. You have Egypt with President Obama supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, going to Egypt and giving a historic speech in support even of the Muslim Brotherhood when he went there, wanting them to be part of the electorate process because it's part of democracy, We see the Syrian situation in which the Free Syrian Army are carrying out massacres. We see the situation in Egypt. The entire Middle East is in chaos. It is definitely Obama's full support to the Islamist cause. So Obama is supporting the Islamist cause in the Middle East. It's very obvious. He has a brother named George Obama. He doesn't even care about George Obama. In fact, even in the documentary, nobody even disclosed why he doesn't care about George Obama. The truth is, George Obama, his mother is Otieno. She's a Christian who lives in the U.S. He doesn't care about the Christian side of his family. He cares very much to the Muslim side of his family. He's very much sympathetic to the Muslims, to the Islamic cause as well. It's evident from his own family.
So what are you saying? I mean, if we look at the big picture here, you're saying something very powerful here, which is that he's linked, that his brother's linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, and that Barack Obama is supporting them with U.S. tax dollars. Therefore, you're saying he's a secret agent of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, he's sympathetic to the Muslim Brotherhood, and I've always argued that Obama, in my view, is the taboo that can never be discussed in America. He is very much sympathetic to his Islamic roots. Obama is very likely to be a Muslim. So, this is something we are not allowed to talk about all of a sudden. The problem in American media is that, you can go to Egypt and find more about what goes on than you can find in your own hometown in this country.
Yes, there's more freedom of the press in Egypt right now than in this lockdown nation of ours, where we have an absolute yellow journalistic press at work around the clock. And if anyone disagrees with them, they're castigated. I understand how hard it is because I work through this mess on a daily basis, Waleed. So having said all of this, having exposed this from... Now remember, you're saying that you heard all of this in Arabic on Egyptian television when Gabali said that her country will not allow any conspiracy against the Egyptian state. And she said that they're trying to destroy the nation. Why would Obama want to destroy Egypt?
Well, obviously, he wants the takeover of Egypt by the Muslim Brotherhood because that's where his sympathies lie. The Muslim Brotherhood is the umbrella organization for Al-Qaeda, for Hamas, for the Islamist movement.
So it's actually worse than I fear on my worst nights and the darkest moments. It's much worse.
It is much.
But Waleed, if you're saying this, and it was published the other day, and the Egyptians are saying it, how could our intelligence agencies not understand this? Or have they all been castrated by Obama? Is it that far gone that they've all been castrated?
Well, obviously. I mean, how many Americans know that one of the operatives who's suspect in Benghazi has been trained by the United States Air Force? Tariq Taha Abu al-Azm. I got the minutes from the articles of the police investigation in Egypt. You have a mastermind who's suspected in Benghazi, have been trained by the Air Force. Hello, this is very embarrassing to the Obama administration, embarrassing for the government. You had the same case before, Ali Muhammad. Who talks about him? Ali Muhammad was a CIA agent, a double agent working for Al-Qaeda. He was the first one to establish the Al-Qaeda manual. He was Egyptian, the same case as this Abu al-Azm. He was found, caught, guilty, sentenced but never tried but never sentenced. Hello, what happened to that man? Ali Muhammad. The same case.
Well, Waleed, look, this is a major league expose, and I don't know, have you had much play with this in the media? Has anyone else had you on their show?
Well, you know you're number one. You care. There's others who do care, but the major media doesn't care. However, even the case of Obama's brother, it was on CNN Arabic, but not CNN English. Can you understand that? CNN
Yes.
the Arabic talks about Obama's brother being linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, but CNN in English never mentions a word about it. So the media is controlled by the liberals, by the institution. They make us pay attention to what is happening in Syria so we can forget about what's happening in Egypt and in Benghazi. If Obama really cares about slaughter in Syria, why doesn't he care about the genocide in Sudan? There is a much bigger genocide in Sudan.
Well, that's another topic, and I'd like to, when we come back from the break, Waleed, ask you your opinion on the alleged gas attack in Syria, whether it actually occurred, whether it's staged, and who actually may have released the gas, because I have no way to believe either side there. They're both so terrible. I'll be right back. We're speaking with Waleed Shobat, former PLO member, former Muslim Brotherhood member, now a peace activist. His book is The Case for Islamophobia. His website is showbot.com. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation.
Swinging into the last phase, the last segment of the hour here on the Savage Nation, we're dealing with a very serious allegation from a very serious man. Obama's brother linked to Muslim Brotherhood. Report says Malik directs radical Islamic movement's investments. It was in the WorldNet Daily the other day. I'll read the two paragraphs, then we'll go back to Waleed Shobat. President Obama's half-brother in Kenya could cause the White House more headaches over new evidence linking him to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and establishing that controversial IRS supervisor Lois Lerner signed his tax-exempt approval letter. Malik Obama's oversight of the Muslim Brotherhood's international investments is one reason for the Obama administration's support of the Muslim Brotherhood, according to an Egyptian report citing the vice president of the Supreme Constitutional Court of Egypt, Tahani al-Gabali. Waleed Shobat, welcome back to the Savage Nation.
Thank you.
Nothing has come of this article. It was written by the very bright Jerome R. Corsi on WorldNet Daily. They quote you, where they say that you listened to the Gabali speech in Arabic from Egypt, and she was vehement and adamant that the president's brother is one of the architects of the major investments of the Muslim Brotherhood. So what happens now if no one's paying attention?
Well, what happens now is as usual. It's always redirecting the attention of the American people to something else. Now we are into Syria.
Okay, so is this gas attack a fake? Is it a fake event, or is it real?
Which event?
The alleged gassing of the civilians in Syria. Are those real corpses? Were they staged, and who did it?
Well, it's difficult to tell in this case. We have to wait. But let me bring the previous case. What happened to the previous case? I've examined even videos that we obtained. Americans don't even see these things. How the Free Syrian Army were able to have weapons cache of Scuds, tanks, SAM-7 rockets, all on video. In fact, even firing Scuds on video, and even having chemical rockets on video. Hello, it is easy for the Free Syrian Army to stage. The Khan al-Assad situation was proven to be a fraud. It was proven to be false. If it is true that in the previous event, the chemical attack came from Bashar al-Assad's army, why is it that in every single testimony from the victims themselves, it showed that it was the Free Syrian Army that lobbed that? How would that be strategically smart for Bashar al-Assad to be carrying out a chemical warfare in Syria when he knows it's exactly what the other side is looking for? So
not only that, but why would he carry it out the very week that the UN inspectors are on the ground? It makes no sense to me.
It absolutely makes no sense. It absolutely also makes no sense to me that Mohammed Morsi would be asking for the blind sheikh just days before Benghazi attack and right after the Benghazi attack. How does that fit strategically from a head of state of Egypt to be asking for the blind sheikh after Americans were killed in Benghazi? The Middle East doesn't make much sense, but we have to look at the source. Mohammed Morsi is an Islamist. Bashar al-Assad is not an Islamist. It doesn't serve him to do this kind of thing. The Christian community in Syria loves Bashar al-Assad. The people love Bashar al-Assad. The Russians love Putin. It's in America that we have the problem. We don't love Barack Hussein Obama. We can't stand him. He is on the side of the enemy. It behooves me that these days I'm looking towards Russia. I'm looking towards Putin. I'm looking towards Bashar al-Assad. And I lost every single hope that is left in my soul to trust this government that I'm living under.
Unbelievable. I can't add to that, nor can I subtract from that. I know that you speak a very complicated Arabic. You speak English. How many other languages, Wally, do you speak?
Just English and Arabic.
Just English and Arabic. Well, I know that you choose your words very carefully, and I would think that if we translated what you just said, there's an entire declaration in that statement. What is so heavy on my heart right now, and what's pregnant in my mind, is where the hell are the Republicans in all of this?
Quite a lot in that segment there. As I mentioned, the Benghazi piece that was part of it, but much more than that, much more information than what I was originally talking about. I'm in the chat room with Richard here, and we're talking back and forth about everything that's going on, and Richard's a veteran, so thank you again for your service, Richard. And I imagine that as a citizen who has not served in the military, what's going on in this country is making me sick. But what I would say is, wouldn't it be nice if we had politicians who took their oath as serious as what those who serve in our armed forces do? And that day hopefully will come. We've been talking in the chat room about 2014 elections maybe taking over the Senate. Can't figure out why this guy hasn't well, we can, but we don't want to admit it maybe, why President Obama hasn't been up on impeachment charges. If you look at what happened with the IRS and Richard Nixon and the Watergate scandal, liberals like to say that the IRS in Barack Obama's case is not an impeachable offense because, he doesn't control the IRS, when in fact, if you look at the case with Richard Nixon, the second article of impeachment with his case was abuse of power, and it specifically dealt with the use of the IRS because the IRS goes through the Treasury Department. There's, I think, 3 appointed positions within the IRS by the Office of the President, and the Treasury Department, obviously overseeing that, took orders on behalf of Richard Nixon, and lo and behold, he used them inappropriately. But for some reason, the same can't be said for Barack Obama. And as you just heard, you have Lois Lerner, who we all know pretended to take the fifth, but at the same time proclaimed her innocence. She's involved here in giving illegal 501c status and allowing the funneling of taxpayer funds. It's bad enough that our funds go to things that we don't support, but this is that case in the extreme. So Richard and I were talking about the case for impeachment and wondering if by taking over the Senate, the Republicans would actually go through with it. The Senate is, of course, as you can see today, whether it's talking about closing down the government or getting a clean CR or the debt ceiling, the Senate is, the whole Congress is dysfunctional, but the Senate in particular is dysfunctional thanks to Harry Reid, who is one of the most worthless people, I think, on the planet today. Not only is he a horrible, dishonest politician, but he is purposely supporting the agenda of Barack Obama and standing in the way of what the American people really need, whether it's shoving through Obamacare or not listening to even his own constituents, which he made some comments about and got a lot of heat, actually, which he deserved. But he is one of, as I said, one of the most dangerous people that we have in our whole political structure right now, because he just will not allow for any progress to be made, whether it's funding parts of the government, or whether it's looking at the wrongdoings of this administration, whether it's getting to the bottom of Benghazi, or whether it's the IRS abuses. The House just does not have a partner, obviously, and I know it's that way all the time when you have two parties and split Congress, but not to this extreme. So back to this Benghazi thing, we have, as I mentioned, Hillary Clinton, the likely candidate for 2016, and I think that she did not want her documentary television show to be aired because she wanted to give time for people to forget all about Benghazi and buy her BS again. But I am going to go to a break, and just before I come back, I'm going to play a little ad that I made for Hillary. Hopefully she'll use it. But I'm going to grab a cup of coffee and take a short break. I'm going to play a little bit of blues music, and I'll be right back after this.
It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. But there's a phone in the White House and it's ringing. Something's happening in the world. Your vote will decide who answers that call. Whether it's someone who already knows the world's leaders, knows the military, someone tested and ready to lead in a dangerous world. It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. Who do you want answering the phone?
Hillary. You had your 3 a.m. call.
The cover-up continues. Like the claim that 4 Americans, including Ambassador Chris Stevens, were brutally murdered because of a spontaneous protest to a video trailer, the Obama administration, and Hillary Clinton in particular, continue the cover-up.
And what was Hillary's response?
What difference at this point does it make?
Never forget.
If Congress won't act soon to protect future generations, I will. I am less interested in passing out blame.
Did I get this economy fixed?
For ultimately, the buck stops with me. No more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient.
Yes. Jeff Wagner back with you in the Conservative Voice, the Conservative Radio Network. That is my ad for Hillary. I wonder if she'll use it. I hope that the Republican Party, or preferably the Tea Party part of the Republican Party, will use the... yeah, I don't see her using my ad either, Richard. I hope that that those folks will use the Benghazi incident to their advantage and take it for everything it's worth, because those 4 people that were left there to die certainly deserve not allowing this woman anywhere close to the White House. Not only that, but you look at there's so many issues we could talk about, whether it is Benghazi, whether it's Fast and Furious, whether it's the IRS, whether it's the abuse of power and using the Office of Management and Budget to pick and choose what gets shut down. Now, thankfully, in my state of Wisconsin, we have a governor who just said, you know what, Obama, to hell with you. Our parks are going to stay open. So another reason to like Scott Walker. Maybe a little bit too much establishment and self-interested for my taste, but certainly doing a lot of good things. But when it comes to the case of Barack Obama, there's no doubt it's very simple to see what he is. Hypocrite. Yes. He is. He's definitely a hypocrite. I love that little song when I think about him. Anyway, looking back at our conversation, Richard and I are talking about, the midterm elections, and wouldn't it be nice if we actually took the Senate? My question is, when are we gonna take advantage of all the issues that we already have? Obviously the mainstream media isn't going to cover it. Fox News doesn't even cover a lot of the stuff that really is happening. And I was thinking too, wouldn't it be ironic if Al Gore selling his channel to Al Jazeera would actually be, people turn towards that as a news source? And I don't know. I honestly haven't spent a lot of time looking at it, but wouldn't it be ironic if that source of information that Al Gore sold would contribute to the undoing of this socialist that we have in the White House? In addition, Richard's saying that Texas is also did also not let anything get closed down, which doesn't surprise me. I lived in Texas for a little while. Great state, one of the best. Although, Richard, I don't know what the latest is on San Antonio and what's happening there with the progressives trying to work their black magic, if you will. But maybe you can let me know in the chat room and I can pass that on. So recently, we were talking about all these issues, but the big one in the news this week was the shutdown, and who's to blame for the shutdown. And of course, Barack Obama is making it as painful as possible. And I do have some info on that, but before we really talk about that one, let's talk about what the source of all this is, what the rub is here. And Richard's commented a couple times too about Obamacare and what's going on with that. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, I guess. You're looking at the youth having to be absolutely necessary to make this monstrosity, in the Democrats' words, a success, which is a joke because it never will be. It's nothing more than an infringement on your rights. And, Ronald Reagan warned about this in 1964, and Ayn Rand even before him. But anyway, so, people are talking now, well, as far as the youth are concerned, it's just a $95 fine. Many of them won't get involved and won't enroll in Obamacare. Enrolling in itself is a nightmare if you've followed what's happening with people trying to enroll and not being able to get on the websites. It's a typically run, government-run operation, much like Amtrak, which is always in the red, and the post office, which is always raising prices. Well, this time it doesn't have to do with the stamp. It's not waiting in line at the DMV. It's your health care, and who determines your care when you get it. They joked and mocked and criticized and demonized Sarah Palin for talking about the death panels. Yet that's exactly what they formed. People are going to decide who gets what and what age is worthy of getting treatment, etc. But this $95 fee is that's a partial truth. It's $95 per adult plus half that price for each child, up to $285, or 1% of household income, whichever is greater. So basically, you're looking at no penalty if you make less than $9,500. If you make up to $37,695, $50,000 penalty, $75,000, $1,600, $100,000, $2,250. All the way up to, let's say, $200,000 income's $4,700 penalty. And in 2016, that's going to jump to 2.5% of household income, $695 per adult, or $347.50 per child, up to $2,085 per family. Okay, so people are talking about the young folks not having to participate in this, and the reality that they're going to be forced to participate in this. So it's precisely the reason why, and I think that obviously the Dems want this misinformation to continue, because everybody will fall back to sleep and go watch their television and not do anything about this. Another thing that particularly amuses me is when the Democrats say, well, it's the law of the land, it's the law of the land. So is the Second Amendment, but I don't see any slowdown in Obama's continued efforts to take that right away from you and me. And the law of the land, in the case of Obamacare, is not a constitutional right. It is not a right to have health care. It is a privilege, and it is something that maybe you should get off your dead ass and go out and work for. And maybe if some other changes were made to the healthcare system, like eliminating competition or increasing competition between state lines and eliminating the state pool only approach, maybe some things would improve. People bash capitalism all the time, but in fact, this nation hasn't been a capitalist nation for 100 years because of these progressives and the attack on our freedoms. Whether it's Woodrow Wilson and his segregation drive and his jailing his political opponents, or it's FDR imprisoning the Japanese Americans. The progressives are the party of segregation. The progressives are the party of strong arm tyrannical tactics. And that just is fact. And unfortunately, not enough people know enough examples of that to actually speak the truth about it. One person who does a good job talking about these issues is Ann Coulter. She gets a lot of crap in the media because of her approach, which, because of my views, I happen to think she's pretty funny. I actually went to see her talk, but just before the election. But she's got some good books out there. Demonic is a particularly interesting book because it deals with the race issue very well. Talks about how the Republicans were actually the party that first tried to get human rights bills passed, and Eisenhower was president at the time, and guess which party defeated that? It wasn't the Republicans. And then, of course, it was Republican Congress that ended up passing the 60s legislation. So a lot of people misunderstand, just as they do on the budget issues, the budget side of things, when they blame Bush for the economy. Well, if you look at the facts, the economy was moving along just fine until what? Until the Congress turned Democratic and the spending went completely off kilter, off the rails. Then you had the dingbat herself, who, again, another person should not be anywhere close to Washington, Pelosi, who shoved this healthcare law down the American people's throats as well. Got to pass it before you can see what's in it. Now we're seeing what's in it, and obviously it is a total and complete nightmare. So, you know, we this all is linked together, obviously, but we see what's happening in Washington, and we see that at every turn, Barack is taking more and more power. Barry is taking more and more power, I should say. And it's very upsetting, and you know, again, it's a question of what's going to happen with the midterms, what's going to happen with the upcoming presidential election, but you know, who will be our candidate? Will they be a rhino? Will they be somebody finally that will make a difference? And I just continue to say, I don't know that you can count on it. It'll be nice, absolutely, but I still believe that those changes have to be driven from the local level. One particular video that or sound file that I wanted to play too, and I like to play sound files from the heavy hitters because I certainly am not one, but one that I found very, very entertaining and very inspiring was Mark Levin this week talking directly to Congress and President Obama, and dealing with the whole issue of the shutdown. So I'm going to play that quick, and if you haven't heard it, it's really good and quite powerful, so take a listen.
I'm going to tell you folks something. I want to say this loud and clear to the people on Capitol Hill who are listening. To this administration. You lay one damn hand on one of those World War II vets at that memorial, I'll bring 500,000 people to that damn memorial. You got that? I'm sitting here stewing thinking about this. Playing these damn games? You will ignite a movement in this country like you've never seen before. The Biker Patriot Army. Veterans from all over the country. Every single war and battle in this country. Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. I'll be damned if one president, with his feet up on the desk in the Oval Office, with his smirk on his face, looking at his golf cart, I'll be damned if this president or anybody else is going to shut down that World War II memorial. Period. These men are in their 80s and 90s. So let me repeat. You lay one hand on one of those men and arrest them for going to their memorial, which they fought for, which was not paid by you, damn it, was paid by the American people. We will come out of every town and city in this nation We will come out of every county, at both coasts, both borders, and we will march on Washington against your tyranny. You've been warned. You have been warned. Oh, shut down the government. Shove it. Let me repeat, Park Service. Let me repeat. You lay one hand on one of those 80 or 90-year-old men who fought in World War II at that World War II memorial, I promise you, I'm going to lead an effort to get hundreds of thousands of people at that damn memorial, and you're not going to stop us. You're not going to stop anybody. You're not going to push around that generation and this president who never served a day in his life. I didn't either, but at least I respect the military. This president who's hollowing out the United States military, who's cutting back their insurance benefits, who's screwing around with them with social engineering, enough is enough. These 80 and 90-year-old men, they fought for this country. Now it's up to you and me to protect them. So you keep your damn hands off of them. And I'm not joking. You keep that damn memorial open, or hundreds of thousands of us will open it for you. This isn't intended to be controversial. This isn't intended to be a joke. This is exactly how I feel in my heart and soul. I take this very personally. My grandfather fought at Iwo Jima, and he fought at Guam. And my great-uncle fought at Guadalcanal. And I will be damned if this community activist is going to shut down their memorial. They beat the Germans. They beat the Nazis. They beat the Japanese. They beat fascist Italy. And I'm not going to allow, as one person, this administration, these people, to beat them now that they're in their 80s and 90s. No damn way. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
That was Mark Levin's answer to Obama's wonderful closure of the World War II memorial. And Levin is always entertaining, and that's precisely the way that that the president and this Congress deserves to be spoken to. And it evidently had some effect, because shortly after that, wouldn't you know it, the memorial was opened, and our veterans were allowed to go back in. I'm going to take another quick break here, and I'm going to actually play a short commercial that I think you'll enjoy. Now, I did not make this one, but it's pretty cool. So.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene.
I'm Lisa.
My name is Tom. I'm a graphic designer,
college freshman,
stay-at-home mom with a full-time job,
scholar on social policy, and a barista. And I'm just like you.
I'm an Obama supporter.
I support President Obama.
But the president needs your help.
Our president can't launch into another war without you. And remember, when we voted for him in 2008 and 2012, we promised to support him no matter what. Together, we can do it.
That's why we here at the Americans for Whatever Barack Obama Wants, Did You Know He's Friends with Jay-Z, have launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund World War III.
And America is dead-ass broke, so our goal is to raise $1.6 trillion on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's where you come in.
Even a small donation would make all the difference.
World War III is a very important, very progressive war that Obama tells me is very important. So it must be.
When I first saw the president speak in 2008 in a YouTube clip posted to my Facebook page, I knew he was going to be right all the time. So I support World War III and IV and any moon war the president may want to start.
I mean, there is no way that he or the cabal of corporate interests, spy agencies, and shadow bankers that tell him what to do would ever mislead us.
The $1.6 trillion that we raise will help create a war that truly puts the liberal in neoliberal. There will be millions of troops, thousands of organic grass-fed bombs, hybrid Prius tanks, rockets controlled by iPads, and drones that play the Lumineers while they attack.
World War III is not going to be like those other Republican wars fought on just 1% of the world. This war is going to be fought in 99% of the world.
It'll be everywhere. Russia, China, Africa, Cincinnati, your favorite brunch spot, the one with those kick-ass ranchero breakfast burritos.
Everywhere. World War III will also be the most social media-focused war ever. It'll be all over Twitter, Facebook, Vine, Pinterest, and whatever eventually replaces Pinterest. And I mean, just think of all the hilarious gifs we can make of cats reacting to their owners' homes being obliterated.
Lots of shock, but tons of awe.
And come on, guys, how good will Michelle's arms look in sleeveless army fatigues?
We have a lot of great rewards for our donors. If you donate $10 to the World War III project, you'll get a shout out on social media.
#thank you.
A $25 donation will get you a piece of rubble from a war-torn Middle Eastern country kissed by Senator Lindsey Graham.
A $100 donation gets you a day pass to leave your local refugee camp.
You'll probably end up in a refugee camp, but it'll have free Wi-Fi.
And a $10 million donation gets you your own senator for a year.
So please, help us reach our goal of $1.6 trillion so we can make World War III a reality. Why? Because Obama.
Because Obama.
What?
Pretty big leap. I don't know why I thought I was going for that.
Because you wrote.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
That I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Ah, damn politicians. My mother always told me this country would be screwed if the liberals had their way. The only sanity I get is when I listen to Jeff Wagner on the Conservative Voice, only on the Conservative Radio Network.
And we're back. Did short little intermission there. Quite a commercial, huh? I am still talking with Richard in the chat room, who's filling me in on some local level harassment. Richard is talking about the American Legion now getting harassment. He is a member of and commander of. Can't read. My eyes are getting bad here. Isn't that just the way it goes? The IRS is asking for DD-214s of all members on file at the penalty of $1,200 per day until they're given them. They want to see the meeting minutes and all past agendas and all sorts of other crap, which is not a surprise. And this is for Post 263 in Gainesville, Texas. So I'm sure there's tons of stories like this going around and occurring, and all I can say, Richard, is it sure would be nice to try to get some national attention to this. The brazen IRS doesn't seem to stop at anything, even when they're exposed, and the fact that this continues is just reinforcing the whole tyrannical despot that we have in the White House. And tell you what, it's scary stuff, and people better wake up, because this guy is not going to change, and that's a fact, Jack. So We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to go into a few more topics. I'm going to have Ronald Boyd join me here, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of things that we have going on, and maybe some more on the topics that we've already discussed. But we'll be right back after this, and I got some more entertaining stuff for you too. So,
and on the 9th day, God spilled some coffee on an angry possum, and God made a liberal. God said, I need someone willing to get up at the crack of noon and check their Facebook and tweet vile things, take a nap, borrow money from their parents, and stay out all night drinking Paps ironically and snorting bath salts and wine until midnight. So God made a liberal. He said, I need a person that can take a thriving community and turn it into a debt-ridden post-apocalyptic welfare state. I need someone who thinks meat is murder, produce is raised in grocery aisles, who can't fix a flat tire or change her own oil, and who, when forced to finally get a job as a barista, makes you wait for your latte while they play Angry Birds on their iPhone and then takes his union-mandated 2-hour break. So God made a liberal. God said, I need somebody dumb enough to believe in global warming and deficit spending, yet arrogant enough to look down at hard-working folk because they don't have a worthless PhD in 17th century Belgian lesbian studies. It had to be someone that would tax and spend, sue and attack, flip and flop, legislate from the bench and pass an unread bill. A person that would take a story of American success and turn it into a lesson of injustice. So God made a liberal. It had to be someone who'd lie to themselves and others and envy the successful. Someone to whine, cry, demand, screech, and scream sexist, intolerant, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, bigot. It had to be someone that at the end of the day they could go home after helping rip apart a country with divisive race and class war, and who would laugh and then sigh with mocking eyes, thinking, if I hadn't aborted all my children, they'd probably say they want to spend their life doing what Dad does. So God made a liberal.
And will, to the best of my ability,
Preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Ah, damn politicians. My mother always told me this country would be screwed if the liberals had their way. The only sanity I get is when I listen to Jeff Wagner on the Conservative Voice, only on the Conservative Radio Network.
In this time of political power grabs, endless bureaucracy, the creation of czars, the trampling of your constitutional rights, turn to the Ronald Boyd Show for clear, intelligent, and concise conservative opinion. Only on Spreaker.com. And we are back. So I'm going to close out a little bit of the conversation we've been having here. And Richard, I'm going to pass on your information as well. There is a link that you can go to that the IRS has to describe the new Gestapo-type laws that they have. It is irs.gov/IRM /Part 4 /IRM_04-076-026.html. And obviously you're going to have to maybe rewind and replay that to get that full link. I'll do it one more time for you. It's irs.gov /IRM/Part 4 /IRM_076-026.html. So if you want to see what Obama and his brown shirts are up to, Yeah, exactly. That's my dog pitching in. Just head to that link and you will be able to see it. So, if you have some comments and you want to join us, Richard is in the chat room. You can do that by going to Spreaker.com and looking up the Conservative Voice Show or the Conservative Radio Network, and just click on the chat and join us. If you want to send us an email, it's thecrn@hotmail.com. Don't forget our Facebook page, Twitter, and our Roku channel, which is a private channel. You just go to your add private channel in your account page and type in TheCRN as the code. I'm joined now by Ronald Boyd. You heard the promo for his show. We are partnering on a project. We are going to put out our first full-length documentary under the Conservative Radio Network banner, if you will. It's really it started as a brainchild of Ron's, and we're working together on shaping it, but it will be called Wimp Nation, and it deals specifically with Obama's approach in particular, but the overall approach to foreign affairs by progressives, and what it's doing to us as a nation on the world stage, and highlighting Obama's mission in particular to take a step back as a world power, and as he says, to lead from behind, or what I like to say, pull it out your ass. So Ronald is here with me, and Ron, thanks for joining us. And what I'd like you to do is just talk a little bit about how this originally came to mind, and kind of what your vision is, and what people have to look forward in this full-length documentary as we make it.
Well, Jeff, as you know, I have degrees in political science and international studies, and I've been thinking about how we look on the world stage today. And of course, most progressives will tell you that, President Bush, he did a lot of damage with his unilateralism, being the cowboy, if you will. And of course, the Obama administration said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to improve on our image again. We're going to become the respected country that we once were. And of course, if you actually follow his foreign policy, you know that that's not the case. Especially the time when he actually said that the United States is respected, and whoever thinks that we're weak, they don't know what they're talking about. I think that should have been followed by a laugh track. Let's just take a look at the situation in Syria, for example. The Russians outclassed us with the diplomatic relations with Syria, or with the negotiations with Syria. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I just think that our military is certainly not weak, but our leadership is weak, and I think that's what you mean. But we look at the Syrians in particular, and I talked about it a little bit earlier. We got who's our enemy, and who's really the person that we need to worry about. You got Assad, who the Christians in Syria love. You got the Muslim Brotherhood, and we played a clip earlier about how Obama has funded the Muslim Brotherhood indirectly through his half-brother. Interesting clip. But, so yeah, I agree. And, it's also evidenced by our allies not supporting us. You look at the UK, the first time since, the late 1700s that they didn't.
Yeah, since probably the War of 1812.
Yeah. So yeah, I do agree, and I think that this type of thing will be ongoing, and as far as the world stage goes, I mean, we've had 5 years of this dismantling, and this guy is continuously shoving his progressive agenda. He's more concerned about destroying the fabric of the nation first. He really is dangerous in that regard, and as I mentioned earlier too, don't you think he's all about distraction? He's all about providing as much crisis as he possibly can to include the shutdown of the World War II memorial. I think he realizes that he can do things like pass an executive order for the Office of Management and Budget, which picked and choose which things would be open, to include things that were privately funded that they had no business even touching, including the what's the name of the bar in Philadelphia there near the Independence Hall. Anyway, a bar where our founding fathers would hoist a few. And they actually closed that down, even though it's privately funded. And I have a link to this on my my page, my Facebook page, the CRN Facebook page. And it is City Tavern. And it's a historic Philadelphia tavern. And, they closed it down because he wanted to. He wanted to inflict as much pain as he possibly could. And even their website is closed down. They haven't noticed. So, again, I think this guy is dangerous, and I think that there's many more documentaries to do. We've talked about this a little bit, but talking about the sociological impact of this administration on the United States, and that could be one in itself. So, anyway, what else would you like to say about the documentary and what people can look forward to?
Well, obviously, it's going to. We're going to look at his foreign policy per se, and we're going to look at some of the stuff that he has done, or some of the ideas as far as like negotiating with the Iranians, and we're probably going to talk a little bit about how, as far as like international relations is concerned, the various theories, the two main theories we'll probably talk about, realism and idealism. And obviously, we'd probably lump Obama as an idealist, not necessarily a realist. And so we'll probably talk about a little bit about that. Obviously talk about some of the highlights of his foreign policy, such as his apology tour. Or lowlights. Yeah, actually, probably more like lowlights. I've been doing some research as far as I've been reading a lot from Foreign Affairs, and I'm going to be looking for some other things. I have actually read a letter by President Obama regarding the War Powers Act and some other things. So
he's a guy who, if you look back, and he's got a pretty good control over the media that's out there about him.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like I mentioned, Breitbart's video that he had of him at the nice little socialist demonstration at Harvard. And then you have him, talking about necessarily skyrocketing the price of energy, and you talk about, all these other bits and clips that are out there. His book, I think, what was it called? Dreams
from My Father.
Dreams from My Fear.
Yeah,
is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think he's exposed himself in a way that, unfortunately, the American people are they've kind of kind of acted like sheep. So Richard also mentions in the chat room, we were talking about closing things down, and he did try to close down Mount Vernon. Yeah, he certainly did.
The parking lot.
That's the parking lot was on federal land, so like I say, trying to make it as painful as possible, and that's more what's happening at home. As far as the documentary is concerned, it's going to tentatively be released out in March, and I'm looking forward to getting that done and getting it out and getting it available. So I think that there's something that we definitely need to be concerned about on the national stage, because the world's getting much more dangerous. We have the Middle East up in flames. We have the downgrading of people's opinions and respect for America. And I think we're living in probably the most dangerous time in the history of the nation, personally. What are your feelings on that?
Well, I agree. I almost think, you know what? I kind of wish now I was a British citizen. Because if you really think about it, the United Kingdom, granted, they probably don't have, like, similar rights as we have, like the freedom of speech. And obviously the Second Amendment is non-existent in the United Kingdom. But if you really think about it, economically, they're freer than us. And plus, yes, they have the National Health Service, but they're also opening their eyes, and now you can actually get private insurance.
Similar to Canada, they're making changes in their laws to come towards what we once were, and we're making changes to go towards, the European Union type of policies that have caused them the problems they have.
And of course, a lot of the most outspoken critics are obviously former Soviet citizens. They actually moved here from Russia, from the Ukraine, from Kazakhstan, or God knows where, that was once part of the Soviet Union. And what are they saying? We lived under this. Don't do this. This is the only country in the world where you have true liberty, where you can actually pursue your own economic goals. You don't need to have a piece of the pie. You can actually make your own pie.
Yeah, to that end, there's a speech that Rafael Cruz, the father of Ted Cruz, has given a couple of times, and I've featured that on my show before. If you haven't seen that, just type in Rafael Cruz on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it. Very worth listening to, and he says basically the same thing as as a person who came to this country, Cuban American, who doesn't like what he sees, and even to the point where it gets personal. My wife and I, we bought this house, and our real estate agent is a Russian woman who came over from Russia and did not know English, went through things the right way, learned English, opened her own business up several years ago after she got her real estate license, and here she is now, very successful. And her and I were having a discussion, and she was saying the same thing. I left Russia because of the political atmosphere, and because I didn't have the freedom to pursue what I wanted to do, and it's heartbreaking to see what's going on under this president. And the American people fool themselves with, well, it's the United States of America, this will never happen here. Well, that's the same thing that so many civilizations have thought about their civilization, and just because we're the United States does not mean we can't fall into some tyrannical despot type of situation like the Germans did, or the Italians did, or the Russians did, and many civilizations before them. So I hope that the documentary that we're releasing will show in that regard how our foreign policy approach is going to make us even more likely to fall into that. And I think, I often think that when I listen to the liberals of today, they're probably echoing the same types of things that the 1930s Germans were. Mm-hmm. I think they're asleep, and they're giving up their liberty for whatever reason. It might be some BS about security, and they give up their liberty, and the NSA is spying on them, and
Yeah, might as well start wearing a Stasi uniform, or, go out and buy a Soviet Army uniform, because guess what? Pretty soon, they're going to be goose-stepping in the streets, and it's time for America to wake up. Because, if we don't watch out, it's going to be the end.
Can't agree more. I am going to wrap it up here, and thank you, Ronald, for joining us, and thank you, Richard, for being in the chat room. I know you're a first-time listener. I hope that you sign up on Twitter. _CRN is our account, and that way you get automatic notifications when we're going to go on air. Again, if you're out there and you got some stories to share like Richard did this morning, I'd love to hear those, and we can put those on and hopefully get some attention. I help you get attention. I'm gonna close with something I thought was really good and kind of unusual. Neil Cavuto is on Fox and more is a financial guy on Fox, and he talks doesn't talk a lot, I would say, about the political stuff.
Yeah.
But he did directly talk to Obama about what's going on, and I'm going to close with that today. And thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you all.
Yes. Oh, and thank you, Richard, for your service. Truly appreciate it.
Amen.
Well, this has just got to stop.
If you talk to somebody who said, well, I don't know, I was watching Fox News and they said this horrible.
Mr. President, Fox News isn't what's making Americans sick about your health care law. Your health care law is. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto. And excuse this departure from form, but I think this is just poor form. So it's time we set some things straight. Mr. President, we at Fox News are not the problem. I hate to break it to you, sir. You are. Your words are. Your very promises are. We didn't sell this health care law. Sir, you did. Remember this?
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor. Period.
Not so. Mr. President, tell that to tens of thousands of retirees at IBM and Time Warner and dozens of others who've been dumped from their coverage and told to find their own coverage. Now, Fox News didn't break that news to them, Mr. President. Their companies did. Fox News didn't push more of those firms to hire part-time workers. Your health care law did. Fox News didn't incentivize fast food restaurants to scale back their benefits. Your health care law did. Fox News didn't make doctors want to opt out. Your health care law did. Fox News didn't make insurance premiums skyrocket. Your health care law did that. Just like Fox News didn't grant hundreds of exemptions to companies that needed them, you did. And Fox News didn't delay one key provision after another, including, just today, online enrollment for those small business exchanges. You did that, sir. Just like it wasn't Fox News that said we had to pass this to see what was in this. You did. Or was that Nancy Pelosi? Yeah, sometimes I'm confused. But of this I am not. Fox News didn't redo basic math. Sir, you did. Fox News didn't say you can cover 30 million more Americans and not see a hit in premiums. You did. Fox News didn't say you could throw in those with pre-existing conditions and not have to pay for it. You did. Fox News didn't all but say you could get something for nothing. You did. Fox News didn't come back years later and say, oh, yeah, we did raise some taxes. You did, just the other night. Here's where you are right about Fox News, however, Mr. President. We were on this very early. We can do math and did. You cannot and did not. Now, we said it and proved it. You didn't, and we're suffering for it. Take it from the numbers guy here at Fox. Numbers don't lie. The number of Americans working part-time and nervous. The number of retirees days away from being dumped on exchanges and anxious. The number of company bosses with any news to pass along on those exchanges still clueless. The number of doctors who want out. The number of congressmen now opting out. No, Mr. President, none of those numbers lie. But with all due respect, sir, I can only conclude you do. I know. You hate us at Fox. But please, take a look in a mirror and fast. You think we're the skunk at your picnic. But that does not mean we are the ones that stink. Because that smell isn't coming from the folks reporting on your law. Mr. President, that smell is your law.